In today's video, I'm going to show you how I painted this heart with flowers in the app Procreate. We're going to be using digital gouache today and I'll guide you through my process. If you're interested, please keep on watching. Hello and welcome to Color with Kendi. On this channel, we paint digital watercolor and gouache, and I guide you through the process. So that way, even if you're a beginner, you can still paint. If I can do it, you can do it too. Now for today's video, I am using a bunch of different supplies, and if you would like to use the same ones as me, you can find a link in the description as well as the pinned comment. Let's begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up the paper texture canvas that I'm using today. This is what the paper texture looks like. It's a light paper texture, not too much. I'm just going to turn this layer off where I have all the brush textures, and then I'm going to tap right up at the very top, and then I'm going to import the rough color map, the traceable, as well as the color palette. In order to do that, all you have to do is go to your Actions menu, that's the red icon, and then tap on Add and insert a photo or a file, depending on where you saved it. Okay, so I've imported everything. I'm just going to move this off to the side. So we have the rough color map, and this is what I create before I make any painting, just to kind of get a sense of where the colors need to go. So we're going to refer to this. And then we have the traceable, and then we also have the color palette. The traceable, we're not going to use the liner today. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename this to traceable so it's a little easier to tell what's going on. And then I'm going to tap on N and then reduce the opacity to about 15%. And then I'm going to tap on the paint here layer and we can start painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is this pink portion of the heart. That's what we're going to paint in. So I'm just going to grab the color from here actually. It might be easier. Or you can grab the color from the color palette too, but I think I'm just going to use the rough color map. And then I'm going to paint in the heart. So I want a little bit of texture on the edges, so I'm going to pick a brush that has a bit of texture. So I'm going to scroll down and I am going to use brush number 42. It's a dual color grungy flat brush. And because it's dual color, we can pick two colors. So I already have one color picked here. It's that pink. So what I'm going to do now is right at the top here, by the way, I'm on disc mode. I'm going to tap on that white. You might have a different color there. And I'm going to pick something that's a little closer to purple. So that way I have a mix of these two colors. And because I want that pink to be my main color, I'm just going to tap back. So now what's going to happen is when I use light pressure, I'm going to see more of that pink. But when I use heavy pressure, as you can see here, there's less texture too. I'm seeing more of that purple. So that way I'm going to get two different colors. And let's start painting. So I'm just going to use slightly larger brush size, size 15. And with very light pressure, I want the edges to have a bit of texture. With very light pressure, I'm going to fill out the edges first. Well, create the edges, not fill out. Create the edges. Following the traceable as a guide. So very light pressure. That way I'm getting a lot more texture. Okay, so that's created that heart shape. I can turn off the traceable for a moment, so I'm just going to press that checkbox to turn it off. And now I'm going to start to fill this in with varied pressure. Some areas I'll press a little harder and you'll see a little bit of more of that purple, and some areas I'll press a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to fill this. I'm happy with that. So now let's move on to the next step, and I'm going to do the next step in another layer. So I'm going to go to the layers panel and then I'm going to tap on plus. So now let's just bring back that rough color map. Okay, so for the next step, what I want to do is start to paint in the purple flowers, and then we'll do the red flowers and then we'll do the yellow ones. So the purple flowers, it's this color here, so let's just grab that. I may need to adjust it slightly, but let's just grab that for now. And as you can tell, there is a little bit of texture but not too much, so we're going to use a different brush for this. Let me just turn this off. So oops, what did I do? I think I turned off too many layers. So I am now going to use a brush that has a little less texture and a little thicker looking. So if I scroll up, we have a few thick paint brushes here. Brush number 16 all the way to 22. And I think for this painting, because we are painting smaller elements, it's a little easier to use a tapered brush. So a tapered brush has a slightly different shape and it's good for painting in slightly smaller objects. So now I'm just going to paint in the flowers, and I'm lifting my pencil several times. So actually, I'm going to reduce the traceable a little bit. So I'm going to tap on N for the traceable and reduce the opacity. Because that way you can see what your painting looks like a little bit more. So I'm just going to fill in these flowers. And as you can see, the edge is not clean, and I don't want that. I don't want a clean edge. I want a little bit of a messy painterly edge. Red flowers. So now that I'm happy with this, we can move on to the next step, which is to add in the white. So I'm going to go to the layers panel and tap on plus, and this is where we're going to add in our white. So our white elements, basically all of the leaves and the stems and the centers of the flowers. And I want there to be a little bit of texture. As you can see here, I'm going to zoom in. You can see that there is some texture. So I'm going to use a detail brush for this because it will give me more control. So I'm going to go down to the detail brushes, and all of these brushes were designed to be used at a smaller size, so they do give you much more control compared to using some of the other brushes in the set for details. So I'm going to go to brush number 50, dual color dry detail. So that's the brush I use in the rough color map, and I'm going to use it again. So I'm going to pick two colors. You can pick any two colors of your choice. I'm going to pick pure white for both. And yeah, I'm just going to use very light pressure for the stems, because the stems are smaller, right? And they're thinner. And then slightly heavier pressure for the foliage. And I'm trying to keep this somewhat dry looking. I want there to be some texture. So I'm not going to fill in everything. I want some of that pink to peek through. So the base colors are done, and at this point we can start to add some details and color variation. And let's do this in another layer. So let's go to the layers panel and tap on plus. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this detail that we have here, that little interesting red edge. And I'm going to use a different brush for this. I'm going to use brush number 40, actually no, I'm going to use brush 48. And it does not need to be perfect. I'm going for the really hand-done sketchbooky vibe for this painting. So now what I want to do is add a touch more contrast by adding slightly darker colors and darker values around some of the elements, just to make things pop a little bit more. And what I will do is with a different brush. I'm going to go in with the sketching and detail pencil A, brush number 1. And this is not dual color, so you don't need to pick two colors. Create a small, subtle outline for some of these. Not all of them, but for some of them, just to make them pop. And now I'll continue the same process with the same brush. I'm just going to create a little bit more contrast around some of the elements. So let's do it with the white. Now, with the white is on a pink background. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab that pink, and then I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Maybe I shift the hue ever so slightly towards purple. And let's see. Yeah, I like that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a darker line in some areas, like that. So I think we are done. At this point, if you want to add some more color, you definitely can. I think I might consider adding a touch more color variation in the background. We did use a dual color brush for the background, but now that we've painted so many things on top, I'm not really seeing that much color variation. So what I'm going to do is where I have that heart background, I'm just going to tap on plus, and then I'm going to make it a clipping mask so that now anything I do in this layer is only going to show up on the heart underneath. It's not going to go outside of the bounds of the heart, so I don't have to worry about staying within the lines. This clipping mask will help me do that. And what I'm going to do, I'm just testing this out, is maybe I will use a brush that has quite a bit of texture. Maybe this, brush number 37. And let's see, I'm gonna pick this color from the background, make it a tad darker. Let's see. maybe a little bit more saturated. Yeah. And then I'm just going to lightly use this brush in certain areas to add a touch more texture. I will use a bit more on the edges. Now the border that we have around the heart, I'm not completely convinced I want to keep it. So let's see. If I remove it, that's what it looks like. Kind of like it without the border now. I mean, I did put it in the rough color map, but that's the thing with digital. You can always remove stuff. So, with it, without it. It does add a certain whimsical charm to it, but I think it's too much detail because we have so much detail in the center. I think this is adding more detail, so I think I'm going to remove it. Is there anything else that I want to do? Let's see. Maybe what if I just add slight dotted lines? I'm going to tap on plus. I'm going to try this out. You definitely don't need to do this, but I'm just trying things out. This is where I like to have fun. So I'm going to go back to brush number 1. And I think the color that I had was quite nice. Yeah. Just going to use this brush to create this sort of line. Okay, so now I think I am done. So now let's have a look at what we made together. So I'm going to zoom in. And yeah, we have some interesting textures. And we've used different brushes to create those textures. And we have some nice color variation. And yeah, that was a fun painting to make. Thank you very much for watching till the end. And if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comment box below. And I will see you in the next video. Happy creating! Bye!